Hello and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of our flagship stations, 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. In addition, today, as always, we're on Birmingham Area Municipal Access, both of our TV channels, Comcast, Channel 15, and AT&T, Channel 99. On the radio, of course, as always, 89.3 Lakes FM, as well as 88.1 WBFH, The Biff, out of Bloomfield Hills. Online, civiccentertv.com. Click on our Watch Live link or watch on the small player at the top right of your homepage on your web browser. Also, Facebook, facebook.com, civiccentertv15, facebook.com/LakesFM as well. And as always, joining me from her home studio in Keego Harbor is Ronnie Dahl.
Tyler, happy Thursday. Really, it's Friday Eve.
Yes, it is. One more day. We're almost there, Ronnie.
Oh my goodness, what a week it's been. Hey, I was out for a run yesterday trying to get back on track with my training because, you know, as I have said before, I fractured my ankle. It wasn't a sprain, it was a fracture. So I was kind of sidelined in my training for the half marathon, but trying to get back into it. And I was running on the trail. The Sylvan Table, the new restaurant in Sylvan Lake. I think we've had them on the show before. They're scheduled to open like June 1st, but going by there, it looks incredible. Just fabulous. I'm so excited. I can't wait for them to open.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures of that on Sylvan Lake's social media and their newsletter they send out, and some other pictures in some of the Facebook groups and so on from that community. And it looks like it's really coming along quickly, and it's nearing its time to open. And really interesting concept they got over there. We've had them on the show before. I'm sure we'll have them on here soon as they prepare to open or shortly after they open to do a little bit more promotion as they get started and a new business comes into the city of Sylvan Lake. Really a great time as things start to slowly but surely reopen.
Exactly. It's a farm-to-table restaurant for those that may not be familiar with it. And I was talking with one of the new employees because they're in training right now. So it looks like it's open. So they had to put up a big sign that says in training. People are so excited. And it looks like they have a really good staff over there. So excited to have that. But I have to say, Tyler, I have a question for you.
Okay.
So while I was running on the trail, there is a group of these flowers that I really like. I forget the name of them. They're purple. They start with the A. I forget. But and it is along the trail. It's not in someone's backyard because there's a fence. So it's beyond the fence line. But these aren't wildflowers. Eventually, someone had to have planted them at one point in time, and maybe they just overgrew or something. But they're blooming right now, and they're my favorite flower. And I was like, can I pick those? Because if it's on the easement alongside the trail, would it be rude if I went out there with a pair of scissors and cut some?
I don't think so. I mean, it's along the ways of the trail there. It's not on. You're not going into somebody else's yard, reaching through a hole in the fence and cutting, a clipping of a flower from inside the yard. If it's overgrown and gone outside of it, it's like, okay, it's a few extra flowers probably than the person who planted them there maybe expected, but it's in a public space. Why not?
I know. And there were so many times that covering the city of Detroit for so long, you'd go by these abandoned houses and it'd be just the most amazing sight because the house would be wide open, stripped, in terrible condition. But then you would see like these bushes or the flowers that were still blooming. And grass is knee high, but it's still blooming. You're like, can I go dig up that bush? I don't, but at the end of the day, that's private property, even though it was, who knows whose property at that point in time. But so I always think about those stories when I'm considering doing such a thing as snipping these plants.
Yeah, it's a much different situation here, of course, with a plant being in a public space, and you wanted to beautify your private space with something that you found in a public space versus the situation there where, of course, things are being broken down and are not being upkept, and you can't really do much to help in as much as you want to because it's somebody else's property, and ultimately it's their responsibility and their decision what happens there.
Yeah. And Tyler, I'm guessing that these thoughts never cross your mind, do they?
Not really. Not really. Not really. I don't really have a reason to be thinking about them very often.
Oh, hey, we'll jump into the show pretty quickly today because we know the governor is going to be speaking at 11:30 this morning. We will be carrying her press conference live. It's anticipated that she is going to relax some of the restrictions around COVID-19, which really kind of has you scratching your head here, Tyler, because it seems like that CDC announcement with the mask mandate being lifted for vaccinated people kind of thrown a wrench in the governor's whole, you know, back to normal plan.
Yeah, it definitely has. It's definitely changed really everyone's plans, businesses, state government, local government, all across the board, especially with all the confusion that there's been since that was announced from the CDC just a short time ago. And now we're seeing a lot of these restrictions be lifted. And there are still a lot of questions with that, too, because we have not reached that herd immunity point of about 70% or more of the population being vaccinated. We're hovering around. We're still hovering just around the 50% portion of the population in Michigan that's got at least one of the 2-dose vaccines in those cases, or 1 dose, and even fewer of that being fully vaccinated with the 2-dose vaccine or the 1-dose Johnson & Johnson.
I know that you guys had the Michigan Week Awards last night, so you probably didn't have the opportunity to catch Dave Coulter's speech last night.
No, I did not. Did not have a chance to catch that because of our obligations here.
Oakland County Executive Dave Coulter presented his State of the County address last night, and he really talked a lot about the historic challenges faced over the past year, but also highlighted the resilience and resolve of county employees, residents, and small businesses during his State of the County address. He delivered the virtual address from inside the empty 100-year-old Baldwin Theater in Royal Oak, which has been closed for the past 14 months due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, most of his address was focused on how the county has supported residents, schools, nonprofits, and small businesses throughout one of the most challenging years in American history, while also touching on how the community has come together to help their neighbors in need. By the end of the month, the county is going to be receiving half of its $244 million allocation in the federal American Rescue Plan funding to further support the pandemic recovery efforts across the county. Now, Coulter did say none of the new funding is going to be used for ongoing county operations, but for targeted industries and demographics to promote recovery and transformational investments here in the community. It's been a very challenging year, and I know he kind of gave us a little bit of peek about what his speech was going to be about when we had him on the show last week. But as we emerge from this recession, a lot of these cities and counties are a little bit flush with cash right now because of the American Recovery Plan. But how can they use that money to lift up the community long term as well? But you really do feel for some of the businesses that have not made it this far.
Yeah, especially those businesses that have been struggling to get by, are still just barely hanging on, or those that are at a point where they're really struggling and they could use some help. The biggest thing here, I think, is how do you inspire momentum as we're coming out of this pandemic economically, both for individuals as well as for businesses, because it's been a challenging year for everybody, and a lot of people have had to figure out a way to continue to balance their checkbooks, whether it be their personal checkbooks, their families, or their businesses, and still be able to get by, pay their bills, and cover their necessities. And so having this extra cash coming in that's from these federal stimulus packages, such as the American Rescue Plan, the biggest thing I think that's going to be a focus for county and local governments is how do you inspire momentum so that we can have a strong recovery from the onset here.
Hey, the governor also released a plan Wednesday to guide districts and schools as they devise a recovery from the pandemic. I would think that she's probably going to talk a little bit more about this today in her press conference. She said the My Blueprint for Comprehensive Student Recovery Plan will help local education leaders address some of their immediate challenges. The blueprint addresses challenges across wellness, academics, school culture, and climate, family and community engagement, and post-secondary education, And that's according to a press release from the governor. Now, the blueprint directs each district or school to engage stakeholders and devise a multi-year recovery plan that is going to be funded by the Federal American Rescue Plan. Those local plans should be guided by the principle that the health and safety of students and staff must be safeguarded. Blueprint also directs districts or schools to hire new staff or to expand the responsibilities of existing staff and compensating them for the additional duties, because we do know one of the issues right now for so many school districts, they are suffering from an employee shortage, not just teachers, but support staff as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the major issues on the educational front that came out of this pandemic. Of course, the greatest one was uncertainty with future funding and with all the additional financial investments that a lot of these school districts had to make in order to make that transition to virtual learning and provide the resources necessary to their students and those families so that they could participate in that virtual learning on a really quick turnaround basis during this pandemic. And so having that plan going forward, and it's going to take years in some cases for school districts to fully recover from this pandemic and get back on the track that they were hopefully on or that they hope to be on. And additional staff's going to absolutely be necessary, because we did see so many teachers that had the ability to retire during the pandemic took their out maybe a little earlier than they wanted to, due to the really tough and ever-changing nature of the profession as the pandemic progressed.
Yeah, what's really going to be interesting to see, though, as we go forward, will the state of Michigan, but other states across the country as well, continue to experience this teacher shortage as we go forward? Because when you're trying to fill that spot for a teacher, it's not something that can be done so quickly, because there are certifications and training that goes into that. So I would imagine that the need for substitute teachers is going to continue to grow here in our area for at least the next year or so.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be critical, like the governor has said in this plan, to compensate these teachers for their additional duties. That's going to be critical, but it's also going to be really tough for these school districts as they have to move money around to resources that are critical to the education of the kids going forward, and to adjust for any learning loss that there may be, or adjustments that have to be made for things that maybe fell through the cracks in terms of learning during the pandemic. And these school districts are going to ultimately focus primarily on the education of their children, but having their professionals that are in the classroom on a daily basis or are substituting in the classroom be properly compensated, properly trained for this uncertain future still that's ahead of us is also going to be critical. So a lot to juggle for these school districts.
I know a couple people that have taken up substitute teaching throughout this pandemic, and some people love it, but it's really challenging as well. I mean, the kids are different now. They're so much smarter, I think, than we were at their age.
Yeah, they're very smart, they're very savvy, and with all the technology that's involved in modern education, in some ways they're teaching the teachers while the teachers are teaching the curriculum. And so it's a little bit more of a two-way street there than it used to be in classrooms, where the teachers would would talk to the children and would teach them the curriculum, and then the students would explore from there. This time it's kind of a back and forth.
So talking about the schools, COVID-19 vaccination clinics are going to be popping up at school sites here in the area. So with children aged 12 and older now eligible for the 2-shot Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, health officials throughout Metro Detroit are increasingly working with schools to host vaccination clinics in an effort to get more people inoculated. Oakland County and the Henry Ford Health System have scheduled clinics at schools or school-based and community health centers starting today. Oakland County is expanding its inoculation reach as the health division works with providers, municipalities, and school districts to provide these pop-up clinics near people's homes. So the county has clinics scheduled in communities by the week. It is going to be kind of by the region, Tyler. So the week of May 24th, it's going to be in the area of Commerce, Highland, Milford, and White Lake townships. Week of June 1st, it'll be over here in our area, the Pontiac area. Week of June 7th, the clinics will be in the southeast Oakland County area. June 14th, Brandon, Groveland, Rose, and Springfield townships, and then June 21st, South Lyon and Lyon Township area. Some of these clinics are going to be walk-in, others will require an appointment. To find out more, just go to oaklandcountyvaccine.com. And then future school-based COVID-19 vaccination clinics are going to be posted on that site as well as district superintendents request them. That's according to the county. So they are trying to do what they can to reach as many people and to make it as easy as possible as well to be able to try to find out where these clinics are. I think that you'll start to see signs outside some of these schools over the summer months.
Yeah, I would imagine that this becomes a lot more of the norm as many of these mass vaccination sites. Of course, the mass vaccination site at Ford Field has concluded to bring these COVID-19 vaccine clinics to be even more localized and even more community-based than before. It may help with some of the vaccine hesitancy. People may be more likely to ask those questions that they may have or address those concerns with people that they know and experts that they know in their community. They're more likely I think people will be more likely to want to go get vaccinated somewhere that's relatively close to their home at a local school than to be traveling all over the county or to one vaccine clinic or another at a drugstore somewhere around their area. So I think there's a lot of positives to having these and having them spread throughout the county so that you're focusing area by area. It also provides additional benefits. So of course, all those details, you can get a link to the Oakland County Vaccine website in this article on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus.
And with that, we are going to take a quick break. And as a reminder, as you just mentioned, Tyler, you can check out the latest headlines. Just go to civiccentertv.com and then click on that coronavirus link. And then at the top of the page, you'll also find direct links to the CDC, because their guidance has been changing quite rapidly as well, along with the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and our local communities as well. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast, jump into the show so that we can take the governor's press conference at 11:30. When we come back, we are going to be speaking with the Etiquette Guru. So many questions continue around the pandemic as we shift from COVID-19 into the vaccination period of this virus. What's proper? What's not proper? And how do you answer these questions? That's next here on the Megacast.
Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful. Because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Great to have you back with us here on the Megacast. I'm excited to have our next guest on. In fact, I was like, we need to reach back out to her because you've been guiding us throughout this pandemic on what's proper and what's not proper. With us now, Stacy Amey. She's the Etiquette Guru. Great to talk to you again. How have you been doing?
Good morning, Ronnie. I'm well. How are you?
We're hanging in there. And so one of the reasons I wanted to have you back on the show, because I know so many people are going through this right now. As we emerge from the pandemic, the big questions now tend to be centering around, are you vaccinated? Are you not vaccinated? How do you answer these things? Is it proper to even ask these questions? So your thoughts on all of this?
I think it depends on who you're speaking with, obviously, but I would be very careful engaging in this conversation. On this topic, people are very passionate on both sides of this. some people have firsthand negative experience with the virus and everything surrounding it. So you want to be very careful. I personally try avoiding the topic. It's almost like asking someone's weight or age, along those lines. So you don't want to be intrusive and offend anybody. And, at the end of the day, all you can really do is take care of yourself and decide what's right for you and be mindful and respectful of others' decisions.
That is funny that you mentioned that, because I know that when I lived down south, you knew to never ask a lady her age.
Right.
It was like, what? No way. Up here in the north, those etiquette rules seem to be a little bit looser, but I'm finding that so many people, just strangers, will say, are you vaccinated? And it's like, how do you answer that in a graceful way?
Gosh, I haven't been asked that by a stranger, but gracefully, as I instruct the children too, if you are asked something that makes you uncomfortable or that is really intrusive, I like to go with how come you need to know that? And I don't say why, because that's bordering on starting just an argument with somebody, but how come you need to know that? And if it is pertinent, I guess, if it was my doctor or something like that, but just a stranger, I would find it curious, how come you need to know that? And that does usually put the person back in their place and, maybe makes them question their motives and realize, oh yeah, that is a nosy question.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is we have to remember, while the vaccine is widely available now, there are some people for health reasons that can't get it. And when you ask that question, you could be putting them in a awkward position as to how to answer that. I know for me, I was being asked quite often, and I was like, yeah, but I was getting a mammogram, and you can't have the vaccine with so many weeks prior to a mammogram. So then you were like, do I explain to these strangers? Well, I'm getting a mammogram, so I need to hold off, right?
Right.
It's like, so with that too, the mask, because now as we start to go into the second phase and the easement of the restrictions requiring a mask, do you anticipate that's going to be another sticky conversation?
It is, especially for us here in Michigan. This has been it's been tremendous for everybody, but what life has been like here in Michigan. And the masks coming off, I anticipate people having problems doing that in public. And on the flip side, the people that were always against the masks, they're not going to be now masking up, just because they decided not to get the vaccine. So I think just, if people could just mind their own business, and just like you said, people that can't get the vaccine, or, people have always worn masks if they're immunocompromised and going through cancer treatment or things like that. How cruel would that be to harass somebody like that? Just, people could really just mind their own business. But I think too, it's going to be confusing for a little while, because the CDC that was stunning last week to me. Personally, I just thought, wow, that was fast in a way, but state and local entities still have their rules and guidelines and things like that. They are easing, but everywhere I've been this week, everybody is still fully masked. And again, that might be just in Michigan. But if you were to be planning something or something like that, it just keep tracking what's happening and the guidelines so you don't get disappointed. And my advice is just keep a couple of masks in your purse or your car so that you can enter a place if it's a situation like that.
It is a bit confusing for all of us right now. Stacy Amey with us here on the Megacast. She's the etiquette guru. And Stacy, one of the other sticky situations, if you're going to be in a group or gathered around other people, is it okay, especially if it's going to be happening in your own home, to then inquire for people if they're vaccinated or not vaccinated, because you're going to be bringing a group together that should if you have a private setting, should your guests know who's vaccinated and who's not? How do you handle that?
I think if it's your own home, of course, you have the right to know who's entering, and what your place is in all of this. Have you been vaccinated or not? I'm starting to just feel like at this point, everyone's going to take their masks off at some point. You're not going to know who's who. If you are having something private in your home, yes, I feel like you have the right to ask that. But if you have been vaccinated yourself, you're, relatively protected from serious complications if you do become sick. And also, you're helping others from getting sick because you're not likely to be spreading or carrying the virus yourself. Um, if you are someone who has opted not to receive the vaccine, in my mind, and if I was having people over and I had the vaccines, and I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, but if you are someone who decided not to get the vaccine, in my mind, you're basically saying that you believe you would be fine if you did come down with COVID. And so that makes it an even playing field in my mind. I'm no longer trying to protect you. You think you're going to be okay anyways. So, people are free to choose for themselves. But I mean, it's a hard call. If you need to know because of other people in your home or it would affect them, yes, I would ask. But once you're out in public, it's, you're just using your common sense, going with the flow. I don't, you'll make yourself crazy. It's going to be hard for the maskers to unmask some of them, all of a sudden. And it's just so emotional on both sides.
Yeah, and like you said, Stacy Amey with us here on the Megacast, she's the Etiquette Guru. And like you said, the CDC announcement seemed to throw everyone for a loop, but it kind of came out of nowhere. And then, and then you have the confusion because I could tell you our elected leaders didn't know until that announcement was made public. And so you have, with the governor, really her, back to normal plan. And removing the mask is about that percentage of people being vaccinated. And we're nowhere near some of the numbers she wants. And so it just makes everything even more confusing. Yes. I remember I went to a wedding last summer up north and it was outdoors, but they did have, when you walked in, like a coded system with wristbands. So you were somewhat comfortable, not comfortable at all. And then you knew people who were not comfortable, they had a certain color wristband. And so, because some people had masks, some people didn't. Again, it was outdoors. So that wristband kind of helped, make that, alert people without having the awkward conversation. And I wonder too, if we kind of get to that, where going forward, you're going to see people with wristbands that say not vaccinated, vaccinated.
Interesting. How did you feel wearing that? Did you feel like put on the spot, or like they were outing you as far as your preferences, or didn't it feel like that?
No, but I've always been, throughout this pandemic, I've been pretty open. But it did make you be, I think, a little bit more respectful of the people that were not comfortable. And so then it wasn't that you avoided them, but maybe they still had a mask on or they still did this. So at least you didn't have to go up and say to them, why are you wearing a mask, or, something of that nature. So I thought it was a unique way in a social setting to try to address the pandemic that was going on.
That's interesting. When you first talked about it, I felt uncomfortable with it, but as you've explained it, I think maybe that's an option. I mean, there's people that are huggers that want to come up and hug you, and there's people that are like, oh no.
I know, it's so hard, especially if you're, like I'm one of those people. I'm a hugger. I'm a people person, and so it's been so awkward. Do you think the handshake's going to start to come back?
I hope so. I don't see why not. And that's a curiosity to me too, in all of these things that people are coming out with. Suddenly everyone has dropped the wash your hands piece to this, and that's making me a little crazy. You still need to wash your hands after you've been in contact with people. It's that, again, it's just common sense. So, I mean, there's no reason for the handshake not to come back, and the hugs and, the kisses eventually. We'll get there. This is baby steps, even though we took a giant leap last week. Shocking.
I know. Stacy Amey with us here at the Etiquette Guru. Stacy, too, how do parents explain this to their kids? Because, too, we have adults that are allowed to remove their masks, but kids still aren't in some situations because they haven't reached that age if they're under 12.
I think just being honest and trying to explain to them the steps that we're taking and maybe likening it to baby steps for them too. Well, now we're doing it this way and this is ever changing, and maybe in a few weeks you'll be removing your masks at school or whatever's going on at everybody's school is completely different. So I guess just, parents keeping it personal and keeping that communication open and listen to your child, ask them how they're feeling and where their head is at in all of this, just, answering all of their questions and making them feel comfortable.
Stacy Amey with us, the Etiquette Guru. Stacy, to us, we start to emerge from this pandemic, and also for so many of us here in Michigan, because the weather is getting so much nicer, which obviously is going to put us into more social situations. What advice do you give just the general public right now?
Get back to normal, be friendly towards people. If you're outside, I can't say you're 100% safe, but you're pretty safe. And I'm finding that people have gone from being, kind of crabby to they want to talk to you. And I have had so many nice conversations with complete strangers. People are hungry for communication and personal interaction and things like that. So take advantage of it. And it's fun. Just talking about, nothing with a perfect stranger it's fun.
We miss that, haven't we?
Yeah.
I will say, what's also confusing too is when we have some of these stores, which stores lift the mask mandates, which ones aren't, and are they only in the states without the mask mandate? So I guess for that, it's like, just look for the sign on the door. If they still have the sign on the door, still put a mask on?
Yes, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Just keep a couple masks in your purse or car to be ready so that you don't get denied something until we are completely maskless.
I will say, one of the things I kind of liked about the mask is because sometimes if you ran into people that were just mean and ugly, like I could stick my tongue out at them through my mask and they never knew. I could be like a 4-year-old, right? And somehow or another, it made me feel good.
Hey, whatever gets you through the day, right?
So, Stacy Amey with us, the Etiquette Guru. Hey, anything else you have going on? Are you still offering classes to some of the students?
Yes, we are still at the tail end of some virtual things, and honestly, I can't wait for that to be over. And we are building more and more in-person classes. The Girl Scouts are changing and evolving their guidelines, so that's going to be nice to just really get back to all of what's considered normal in your life. And still working on my Murray mags. Let me show you. I have issue 7. This cover looks so good.
Wow, that looks amazing.
Yes, Boris Kim. He's a great illustrator, and this is, well, I can't show it that well. That's
there it
issue
is.
8, issue 9 is at the printer, so we're moving right along with that, and it's so fun.
That is so great. And so with that too, what's the one big thing that you'll take out of this pandemic as the Etiquette Guru?
I think just really holding in my heart the people that have been so compassionate towards one another through this. We have all gone through this together as humans, literally the entire globe, and focusing on that. I don't focus on the ugly and the negative. That doesn't help anybody. So just really being so grateful for the people that have shown kindness and support, and my nurse friends, we are awesome.
No, and we should point out too, it's, good manners and being kind never goes out of style.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Stacy Amey with us, Etiquette Guru. Anything maybe you want to add that I didn't ask before we let you go?
I don't think so. Just please be nice to one another as we emerge from this, and whatever side you're on, just appreciate that everybody can make up their own decisions, and don't bother with it. It's just, we'll get back to 100% normal one day, but in the meantime, just being relaxed and go with the flow and be nice to everybody.
So true. Well, we so appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Get out, enjoy this beautiful weather.
You too. It is beautiful today.
Well, you have a happy day weekend. We appreciate your time, Amy. Stacy Amey with us. She's the Etiquette Guru. You can find out more on her website. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Acorn Health. They've been switching their programs around in the middle of the pandemic. It hasn't stopped them from still helping the community. We'll talk more about that here in just a few moments.
Finally, I just got my COVID-19 vaccine.
I registered with my local health department and they called me.
I got mine at the pharmacy and my neighbor got hers from the hospital.
I'm not a techie person, so I called the COVID hotline and they helped me schedule an appointment.
Get vaccinated with the first vaccine you can. Protect us all.
Learn more at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine. COVID-19 has caused many families to fall behind on finances and on groceries, but you're not alone. You shouldn't have to worry about putting food on the table. MyBridges offers access to quality food and income assistance to help families across the state get the food support they need. It's easy to apply and easy to start shopping. Apply for services at michigan.gov/MIBridges. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping. Taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Greater West Bloomfield's news magazine show The Splash is back on 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. Join WWJ's Brooke Allen and the team as they cover the most interesting people, events, and projects in West Bloomfield, Keego Harbor, Orchard Lake, and Sylvan Lake. The Splash returns at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, May 25th on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and experiences connect through conversation, and it feels good.
This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together. Start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
Over a decade ago, the journey to a COVID vaccine began. Building upon research on other coronaviruses, scientists continued with months of research and development, 3 phases of clinical trials with tens of thousands of diverse volunteers, then peer review and authorization to deliver a safe and effective vaccine that will protect all of us. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
Great to have you with us this morning on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl. Tyler Keefe holding things down for us back there at Civic Center TV in West Bloomfield. And as a reminder, we are always here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon, live Civic Center TV, Birmingham area municipal access. If you have cable, you can find us on channel 15. If you have Comcast 99 on AT&T, you can also listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And if those outlets are not available to you, you can also find us on Facebook, where we live stream the Megacast on our Facebook page. This has been an extremely difficult time for so many families with their children with autism, because as we've all been locked down, they've been locked down with their children, but therapy and treatment is so vital throughout this time and really all times. And to try to help them with that Acorn Health has opened up a new clinic here in this area. To talk a little bit more, let's bring in Emily Besecker. She is with Acorn Health. Emily, great to have you with us.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
So tell us more about Acorn Health, because you guys are changing things around in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, we did not slow down, that's for sure. Acorn Health provides ABA services across 8 different states, kind of on the east side of the country. And in Michigan, we're kind of all over in a lot of different regions. In southeastern Michigan specifically, we have a clinic in Clarkston, a clinic in Clinton Township, and we're just opening a clinic in West Bloomfield.
So in the middle of trying to provide these services, what's it been like for you and members of your team to try to reach these families?
Well, we have had to be really flexible, and we've had to pivot kind of very quickly. When, the pandemic first started, we kind of did all in home or mostly in home. We split our team in half. Some people provided services in home. Some people, very limited, provided services in center. And as the pandemic has progressed, we've been able to bring some more individuals back into the center and kind of provide some more services. But we did not stop at any point during the pandemic.
So with that, Emily Besecker with us here on the Megacast. She's with Acorn Health. And Emily, what's this been like for some of the parents as well?
Well, it's been stressful, right? Just with, just the same as other, families with neurotypical children. School stopped, the routines have changed kind of drastically and dramatically. It's hard to get out of the house and to do the activities that they used to do. And it's been a challenge. But luckily we've been able to continue to provide services and keep kind of working towards those individual goals for our clients.
Because with that too, talk more about the types of therapy and the importance is, kind of keep it on a schedule and a routine.
Yeah. So, routine and schedule is so important when we work with clients with an autism spectrum disorder. We work really hard at kind of maintaining the hours of treatment and therapy that we recommended from a clinical perspective, right? At the beginning of the assessment. And, we don't want to lose time, right? When we do ABA, a lot of it is like getting a lot of therapy and treatment in a timely manner, so we don't lose time, and those children can still, acquire skills at a rapid pace and continue to move towards their goals.
So Emily, are you concerned that some of your clients could be taking a step back through this pandemic?
I think that we were concerned that we would have to, if we had to stop treatment, completely, that was a big concern, right? That they would lose kind of some steam, right? In their skill acquisition. But luckily we have not had to stop treatment. We've in fact sometimes been able to increase the number of hours we've been able to provide. And so, our clients are all, are doing very well, right? And we kind of continue to kind of keep our eye on the ball and work towards those goals.
So when we're talking about autism, there are so many different avenues and levels of the spectrum. How do you try to come up with a treatment for each child, which is so different?
Yeah, the beautiful thing about behavior analysis is that it's really individualized for every single person. So what ABA treatment might look like for one client, it's not going to look the same almost ever, right, for the next client. So there are all sorts of different skill assessments and behavior assessments that we can kind of choose from that kind of will speak kind of appropriately to each individual client. And then, the picture looks different once we get through that assessment. And we really talk to the parents and we talk to the families and we really look at those individual clients and to determine what are the most socially meaningful goals we can choose for each client.
Emily Besecker with us here on the Megacast. She's with Acorn Health. And with that too, just from a company standpoint, what has it been like when it comes to trying to manage this in multiple states? Because what's happening, in Florida is not the same thing that's happening in Michigan, and trying to navigate those various changes and how every state has been responding to this pandemic?
Yeah, Acorn Health has been amazing throughout this whole process. They have, like a COVID committee, right? That kind of takes all of the information from the CDC and the states and at a local level, and makes sure that our policies, our company-wide policies, like align with all of those. Obviously, we've had to have some separate and specific policies and procedures for, each state as we've kind of navigated this. But the key has been like flexibility and being able to pivot and like adjust very quickly.
And so with that too, it seems like the discussion has been changing over the past decade surrounding autism. I remember years ago, just even the fight to get autism, recognized on a state level for so many of these families to be able to get health insurance. Is that conversation changing now?
Well, I think that, access to care and ABA services in particular is a little bit easier than it was. I've been in this field for almost 14 years. So like when I first moved to Michigan, like the insurance didn't cover autism services. They didn't have the autism benefit. And it was so challenging for families to get the services that they needed and their children needed. So since the insurance mandate, the access has improved drastically. I think there's still, we still have to navigate insurance and navigate Medicaid. And, there's all of these guidelines around like obtaining a diagnosis and like what kinds of battery of tests do you need in order for the diagnosis to, kind of qualify for ASD services. And so that's still like, sometimes it feels like a full-time job, I'm sure, to these families.
Yeah, because on top of that too, we know, don't worry about your pet. You'll hear mine probably at some point in time too.
Did you hear him? He's drinking.
Oh, that's so cute.
He's like very old and barking in his sleep.
Oh, maybe he's chasing a bunny. But with that too, we were talking, how important though is it for parents when their child is diagnosed with autism to get treatment as early as possible?
Yeah, we kind of, research shows that like early intervention, right? As soon as you kind of have that diagnosis, early and intense intervention is the gold standard, right? That you see the most progress, you kind of get like the most impact, socially significant progress is made when you get those children in early and kind of at an intense level.
So is it hard to kind of navigate this world though, because the research is still new? You're still trying to figure out what works best for some kids and other kids.
So I think that there are, variables on an individual level, right? What works best for one kid might not work best for another child. However, there is kind of a pretty robust body of research now about kind of what the gold standard for treatment is for ASD. And there are many established treatments that we know are effective and are impactful.
So tell us about the new clinic that's going to be here in our area in West Bloomfield.
Yeah, it's at 15 Mile and Orchard Lake. It is not quite open yet. They are still building out some of the inside, but we anticipate that it will be open in June or before June, hopefully. But as we're starting to do a lot of services in home, and then we'll transition to the center-based services once the clinic is open. But we'll provide services for kids between like 18 months, and we'll go all the way up to young adults. We will do both in-center and in-home services. And we're excited to kind of get involved in the community and get to know the area.
And so with that as well, are you feeling a little bit more comfortable? And now that it seems like we're coming on the back side of this pandemic?
I am. I don't like to say that out loud though, because, who knows what will happen next.
Right. We don't want to jinx it because look what's going on in India. It's heartbreaking. And,
really
while we feel like we're on the backside of this pandemic, it could come back with the variant. So
yes, but I am feeling kind of better. And also just I know what to do now, right? Before we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants, right? Everyone was trying to determine, what's the best course of action. And now we know, kind of how to safely provide treatment in this type of environment.
So with that, Emily, as well, any silver linings that happened for you and your team throughout this pandemic?
Well, I'll start with the clients. I think that some clients got to have some more hours, like more services, right? Because they had time in their schedules, right? To get in and have some more intense services, which was great. We saw great progress. Parents were around a little more if they were working from home. And so they were able to be more involved in treatment, which we always want parents to come in as much as they can, right? And be present. But parents were able to be a little more involved. And I think we saw skills like generalize, right? From clinic to home and all of those things, which was wonderful. And I think as a team, we've really kind of come together, right? We've worked through kind of a tough time. And I'm always amazed and impressed by my team and the Michigan team in general, that how quickly they're able to pivot and be flexible and really always kind of drive towards like what's best for our clients and always make decisions with that in mind.
Yeah, you think back to, if we would have been having this conversation 2 years ago, no way, that's not going to happen.
No, no one thought it was really going to happen, even when it was happening.
Right.
At the beginning, right?
It's been a very long 2 weeks, right?
Absolutely.
Also I have to ask, how has it been trying to navigate this world when it comes to talking about the vaccine, but also mask wearing? Because, with some people that, it's hard for, all of us adults at some point in time, but also autistic children and adults can have a harder time, comprehending what's going on in our world.
Absolutely. I think, we individualize, right? Like our treatment for each client, and we work towards what's going to be most impactful for them. So for some of our clients, that was, let's learn to tolerate wearing a mask, right? Let's be able to determine like in what environments do I need a mask and when can I take my mask off and things like that. So it's added a whole new skill set to what we have to think about, especially if they're going to participate in school and have to wear a mask, and can you take it off on the playground or not? And in what context and all of those things. So that has added a whole nother level to think about.
It really has. And I think part of it too is try to make the mask fun, especially for kids.
Right? Cute masks go a long way.
They so do. With that, Emily Besecker with us here on the Megacast. She's with Acorn Health. They are going to be opening a new clinic here in the West Bloomfield area. And with that, how can people find out more information about your services if they need to?
So they can go to our website, acornhealth.com. And there's a whole bunch of information there. And then there's a contact us place on the bottom, or they can email admissions@acornhealth.com and someone will get back to you.
Anything maybe I didn't touch on that you want to add before we say goodbye, Emily?
No, you did great. Thank you.
Well, we so appreciate you coming on with us as well, and shifting your schedule around to accommodate our schedule. We so appreciate it, and best of luck again to you and your team.
Thanks so much.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast, and when we come back, we're going to continue the healthcare talk, but this time we're going to discuss phobias, people with their phobias right now because of the pandemic. That's next here on the Megacast.
Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful. Because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Great to have you with us here on the Thursday edition of the Megacast. As a reminder, we understand maybe you don't have a full 2 hours to hang out with us Monday through Friday, but that's okay because we've made it easy for you to be able to go back and view some previous episodes of the Megacast. All you have to do is just go to civiccentertv.com, click on Megacast. There you can review all the previous episodes going all the way back to the very first show, or if you just want to catch an individual interview, you could do so by clicking on the on-demand section. I will say, I remember Tyler, way back in the beginning of the pandemic, how many times did you wash your hands a day?
I lost count, honestly. I would wash them consistently throughout the day. Every time I touched something that someone else touched, or I'd walk into another room and not know if someone else had walked in there and hit the doorknob beforehand. I'd be washing my hands constantly.
It really has changed how we look kind of at the world. And I remember in the beginning, like everyone was wearing gloves, but then they were contaminating their gloves and still touching their face or their phone. And everything you touched, you started looking at things like, hey, wait, does that have cooties on it? Cooties, germs. But that has really kind of led to some phobias. Let's bring in Carrie Krawiec. She's a therapist over at the Birmingham Maple Clinic. Carrie, more people are becoming aware of germs and becoming germ phobias. Is it germphobiacs or phobias?
It carries a couple of different names. So, historically you would say hypochondriac, and we say germphobic or illness, anxiety. It's got a lot of sort of names in the community.
It does, but I will say though, I remember back at the beginning, you totally changed how you looked at everything because we didn't know where the virus was. We were being told to wipe down our groceries and anything that came into the house. And so do you think that's increased phobias within our community now?
Sure. Like you said, for sure, it heightened awareness, it heightened vigilance. Anxiety in its purest form is really a good thing. It helps to prepare us for protecting ourselves. So when we feel a little bit of stress or anxiety is our fight or flight response, readying us to take on some new stress, which, like you said, at the start of COVID, we were all experiencing that extra sensitivity to our surroundings and the world around us, extra protective of ourselves and our loved ones. So the difference between that kind of anxiety, especially in the beginning when the information hadn't caught up to the instructions that we were given, everybody was much more aware of the potential of getting sick. So when we think about the people now who are experiencing a high degree of anxiety, the information has changed. It's become more lax. We're getting feedback even from the most highest respected physicians saying some of these things are okay. And when you start to wonder if it's a concern is when people have remained that early rigidity and that very heightened stance, even though the evidence isn't really suggesting that's necessary anymore.
But do you think too that changing information that's come out from our physicians and the CDC, is it kind of added to the anxiety for some people?
For some, I think because we get constant information in that. So, we think of, germphobia is related closely to obsessive compulsive disorder, and the people who do that, like you were talking about with Tyler, that obsessive washing and cleaning, that's the compulsion is the cleaning, but the obsession is the thinking about it. And when we get all this information, then we obsess over each detail, one mask versus two masks versus no, you just every time, and you're getting that information so much. And of course, we're getting it via our media and our computers and those things, that sometimes the best advice is that we're actually getting too much contact with the information, not with the germs.
Yeah, Carrie Krawiec with us here on the Megacast. She's a therapist over at the Birmingham Maple Clinic. Carrie, if I can ask, we're 14 months into this. When should someone understand that it's just being concerned versus they need to seek help?
Sure. I think if you're in the realm of being preventative and protective, you're okay. But if you're in the realm of panic, like say, for example, you go somewhere and there isn't hand sanitizer ready available and you are in panic or total distress, or the thoughts are really consuming you and you're deeply uncomfortable. If you're in panic, you're really outside of what's normal. If you're just like, can handle it, if it's going to be a few minutes or a few hours or whatever it is, and you're going to be okay on the other side, that's one thing. But if you feel like you cannot be okay, that's another, especially as we're also resuming a little more normalcy. People who are continuing to let it intrude in their lives. Now, of course, we all let it intrude in our lives when we had to leave work and school and all those things. But now as families are rejoining, friends are rejoining, if you're still refusing to do any sort of form of life, that's probably a concern. And then if it's disrupting your family's life as well, and they're saying, hey, something's up here, that would also be a concern.
And so with that too, do you think for some of the people, can you develop a new phobia, or did they already have maybe underlying concerns prior to the pandemic and this just made it more noticeable?
Probably a little bit of both. Close to half of the population could be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. So it's possible that some are predisposed to anxiety, and that those who are predisposed to anxiety felt that uptick, like I said, as everybody became more anxious, and as they should have at the start. For some, depending on what happened, they might be experiencing trauma or post-traumatic stress as well. If they lost a loved one or became severely ill, or someone they know became severely ill, that may be a whole new thing, right? Where their response to the virus and germs in general is a traumatic response because they're afraid of recurrence.
So with that as well, what about people, I have some friends that the thought of going into a crowd right now sends them into a panic. It's no way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, right, once upon a time, we would have maybe thought that would be sort of like diagnosable as a problem, but maybe right now that's still within the realm of reason. Are there ways they can protect themselves in a comfortable way? Are there ways that they can de-escalate that panic? Is probably okay. I think in some ways it's trust your intuition. If you don't feel comfortable, if it's too crowded, too close, too enclosed, then you're still within like sort of what's normally expected right now during a pandemic. But if like I said, if it's not meeting those criteria and you're still in a panic, that's probably more of a concern that it could be some irrational worry as opposed to a real worry.
Yeah, because with that too, especially when we start to think about crowds again, it gets confusing because of the vaccination. You can wear a mask, not wear a mask, but also social distancing. We've been taught over the past 14 months not to be within 6 feet of people, but even that information is changing. So it's, for some people, it's the confusion that could add to the panic and the phobia.
Sure. And obviously a want, I think we're also experiencing the kind of anxiety of this like sort of want for sameness, or the fear of missing out. You see other people doing things, you want to do it, but you are deeply anxious about it. And it's hard to bridge that gap between what you're comfortable with and what everyone else seems to be doing. So a lot of people are having a lot of anxiety about that. I'm encountering a lot of couples and families even having conflicts in their relationships because one is more open than the other to taking those steps forward to reentry.
Yeah, we've definitely seen some of those conversations going on just within friends even. So with that, do you think that people that maybe develop these new phobias throughout the pandemic, will they go away, or could they manifest into something else?
I think it's probably a spectrum for all kinds of people. For some, as they begin to have exposures in the world to either themselves pushing themselves into the next step of what they're comfortable with and kind of gradually increasing their comfort towards reentry, as they begin to tolerate one stage or the next, they will feel more comfortable, and they'll feel that they have the skills or tools to protect themselves to the degree they need to. So for some people, as they walk through that process, it will go away. For others, the potential for it to escalate even would be there. The more isolated they stay, the more obsessive they become. Like I said, it's like a virus. They're just constantly circling in that information. And for those people, it could certainly worsen.
So, and with that, Carrie, too, we know that the people suffering from these phobias, you talked about when they should seek help, but also for the people that are around them, how should they react and respond? Because if we, kind of say, oh, you're just overreacting, does that make it worse for them?
It can, and I think, right now, especially at the start of this, many of the people who had the tendency to feel this way about germs to begin with felt very validated because they said, see, I've been behaving this way all along. I was right all along. And so it will be hard to sort of break down some of those walls because they actually felt sort of emboldened, empowered in their germ-phobic status, that they were doing the right thing. I think that, I think one would be to be kind and compassionate, to say, well, like, what do we know, or what steps can we take, or what would be just a small gesture towards, reentry, kind of doing baby steps one at a time. I think, right, to call someone overreacting, then they're just going to counter argue you with all the reasons why they're right. So then you're just in an argument, and that's not really helpful. So we say, like, okay, yes, of course we know germs exist, and actually, the positive of this last year is that many families have experienced less infection because we haven't had as much flu or common cold or any of the normal things, because we've been protecting ourselves. So we say, yes, look at how great we've done within reason. How can we do more of that without prohibiting our life moving forward?
It really is going to be an interesting conversation as we continue to emerge out of the pandemic, but we also do know that we are still in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. So is this something, if you're observing maybe a family member going through one of these situations, do you allow for it to continue until we're completely in the clear? Because, to some degree, they may be right. Maybe they don't want to be in a group, or maybe they do still want to be washing their hands. So at what point in time, I guess what I'm asking is, if I'm observing a family member that has, that has begun to show signs of these phobias because of the pandemic, at what point in time do I try to convince them they need help? Because we are still kind of in the middle of this crisis.
Sure. I mean, I think what beautiful timing that you're doing this piece today after, the orders for the mask orders changed on Saturday, and then moving towards changing as of July 1st, that this would be a really good time to work with those family members who are struggling, to say, let's prepare ourselves for this time, July 1st. And then in the event July 1st comes and it's like a hard stop, can't do it, can't, abide with whatever new normals, or most people are, returning to work and returning to school and those things, then it would be a sign. So it's like, let's just get a little bit of comfort now while things are still sort of safe-ish, so that we can feel very confident when things become more closer to the normal we had experienced before, which is each person gets to choose for themselves how to best protect themselves.
Carrie Krawiec with us here on the Megacast. She's a therapist over at the Birmingham Maple Clinic. And Carrie, are you seeing people with an increase of phobias? Is it mostly adults or kids as well?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both. I think it depends on the context, if they have elderly or aging parents, if they have immune compromises, some of those anxieties makes more sense because there really is a heightened threat level for those families. So yes, certainly children are experiencing this. They have anxiety now. Even vaccinated grandparents are seeing their grandkids, but the grandkids don't feel comfortable because all along they were told they couldn't see their grandparents because they could make them sick. So kids are pushing back even though they want to, because they feel still so afraid, because the messages were scary to all of us, but you think then through the eyes and mind of a child, like it's big. Every time I have a 6-year-old, he sees like a kind of a spore looking ball, he says, is that coronavirus? Because you always see that picture on the news of the, so yeah, so for them, what it means could be so different. So certainly kids are experiencing that, but adults are, too. And, I think adults experience more of the social stuff too. What do I do if I don't feel comfortable with my coworker? What do I do if I don't feel comfortable with my husband's parents, but he does, and those kinds of things are causing people a lot of distress too, not necessarily about the virus and contracting it, but also how to manage those uncomfortable conversations. People with babies are feeling very anxious. They're already postpartum. They've been pregnant through the pandemic. They've had their infants through the pandemic. And now is the time people want to see their babies, and they are not doing well with it at all.
Wow, see, there are so many facets throughout the COVID-19 crisis, and I really think it can be years before we really emerge from this. But as we've talked about before, I think one of the great things that has been happening throughout the entire pandemic is opening up the discussion to talk about mental health. Let's remove the stigma. Everyone is suffering from something throughout the pandemic, even if it's a mild case of depression.
Sure. And I think, like you said, what could families do if they're noticing things? Some might not be so obvious, but, people have reported, of course, increase in drinking alcohol consumption, cannabis consumption, things that people are maybe doing to calm themselves that are not necessarily healthy. And you may be noticing as a family, wow, we're noticing this even increase in drinking or something. And maybe it's just covering up a heightened anxiety about all of this uncertainty that we're experiencing.
So at what point in time, though, as well, now that we're starting to emerge from the pandemic, the restrictions are being loosened, would you anticipate, too, some of those habits that people created at the beginning of the pandemic to help them deal with the crisis? Would those habits start to decrease and get back to normal?
I mean, I think you'd hope that they would, as people are engaging more socially, or they're getting their needs met in other ways and they're feeling better in general, they can return to gyms without masks, things like that. You'd hope that there would be a relief and relaxation associated with those. And so certainly as a family, if you notice then that they didn't, that those habits stayed even in light of new denominators, then it would be sort of important to address.
Carrie Krawiec with us here on the Megacast. She's a therapist over at the Birmingham Maple Clinic. Just another couple minutes with you here, Carrie. We always appreciate having you on the show because you give us so much insight and knowledge. And with that, anything else maybe that you want the viewers to know before we say goodbye?
I feel like I say this each time we're together, but, as therapists, we always think of intensity, frequency, and duration, meaning how long, how big, and how often are you having anxiety about this? And that if it's longer, bigger, and more often, that's certainly a time to get therapy. And if you can see it going down, smaller intensities, lasting less and less time, not happening as often, then you're probably in a good place to move forward. Obviously, if anyone's at any risk of hurting themselves, I always say to be bold and ask bluntly, do you want to hurt yourself? Do you want to die? Do you have thoughts of killing yourself? If you can ask that so upfront, you could really save someone's life.
Oh, such good advice. Carrie with us. We always appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Again, before we let you go, though, if people want to find out information about the Birmingham Maple Clinic, it's on your website if they maybe want to try to schedule an appointment.
Sure. I'm at birminghammaple.com. We have 39 therapists and psychiatrists. For the treatment of germ anxiety, is the best to see both a talk therapist and even maybe consider medication. Also right now, especially for people who are still uncomfortable meeting in person, many of our therapists are meeting via Zoom or telehealth. So there are options to meet every comfort level.
Do you anticipate telehealth is going to stick around?
We sure hope so. It's something that I would hope would benefit the insurance companies, as it would keep people in treatment and less risk of getting sick. And also mental health is connected to so many other physical ailments. So I hope the insurance companies see a benefit so that they continue to offer it as a service to their clients and customers.
Yeah, so many people, it's really been a lifesaver for them throughout the pandemic. Carrie, again, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast.
In times like these, we have to believe in each other.
And we believe that you'll do the right thing
when it comes to stopping the spread of COVID.
Follow the 3 W's.
Wear a mask.
Wash your hands.
Watch your distance.
And when it's your turn, To get the vaccine, take your shot.
It all comes down to the golden rule.
Treat others the way you want to be treated.
We're so close, Michigan.
We can do this together.
Quitting smoking can improve your health, but it also protects your loved ones from secondhand smoke. Did you know there's no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke? Smoke from cigarettes, e-cigs, and hookah can travel through ventilation systems and harm those around you. So clear the air and stop secondhand smoke. Call the Michigan Tobacco Quit Line at 1-800-784-8669. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping. Taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Over a decade ago, the journey to a COVID vaccine began. Building upon research on other coronaviruses, scientists continued with months of research and development, 3 phases of clinical trials with tens of thousands of diverse volunteers, then peer review and authorization to deliver a safe and effective vaccine that will protect all of us. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
Quitting smoking can improve your health, but it also protects your loved ones from secondhand smoke. Did you know there's no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke? Smoke from cigarettes, e-cigs, and hookah can travel through ventilation systems and harm those around you. So clear the air and stop secondhand smoke. Call the Michigan Tobacco Quit Line at 1-800-784-8669. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
At just about 45 minutes left here in the Thursday edition of the Megacast, we are going to try to join Governor Whitmer's press conference. She is scheduled to have one around 11:30 this morning to update us on the COVID-19 response. It is expected that she is going to relax some more of the restrictions. So we'll bring that to you as soon as the governor is ready. But before that, we're excited to bring in Katrina Ayat. She is an organic farmer, but you guys have so many more things going on. Katrina, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, doing great. It's a hot one today. You know, when the sun's out, I mean, as much as we all love it, it makes the birds sing and it makes us happy. You need practically fire hoses in the greenhouse to keep things watered. And then same thing in the field, we're watering, you know, as much as we can, but tomatoes love the heat. So that's good. They're doing great.
You know, I will say I'm so excited because I go to the Eastern Market quite often. So the next time I'm there, I'm going to try to find you. But so you're with Aunt Katrina's Brandon Businesses. In the middle of this, you also took over another business in the middle of a pandemic in downtown Detroit. What were you thinking?
It's funny. I made a TikTok video that said that, like, what was I thinking? But I really didn't do it in the middle of the pandemic. So I'm a longtime tomato farmer and a fixture at the Eastern Market. My family's been there since, you know, early 1900s. And that's where I've made my living most of my life. On the wholesale market with our company, my family's business, Ayat Ranch and Orchard. I went to Hillsdale College in Michigan and then returned back to the farm in 96 to start tomatoes.com with my mother and brothers. And so I've always been on the commercial side or conventional tomatoes. We sell tomatoes to about 125 different local farm markets and grocery stores, you know, Joe's, Vincent Joe's, you know, you'll see them are conventional tomatoes from Ayat Ranch and Orchard everywhere. But then in 2017, I started my own organic farm and I bought the original homestead that we all grew up in, and started a 10-acre organic farm, and left the business in 18, and then came out with my first product. And so, my logo, all of my companies, they all have my logo on like this, but started producing a roasted tomato sauce called Ketchup in October of 19, and then bought Beaubien Fine Foods in December of 20, January of 20. And
so
then the
right
pandemic.
before the pandemic. Yeah, and then the pandemic hits.
So I didn't have that in mind.
And we should point, for those that don't know the location, it is right downtown. Isn't that next to the Detroit distillery?
Oh, the old Beaubien production facility was there. Yes, it was an old slaughterhouse that the original founders of Beaubien had moved into. But as of May 1st, I retired the Beaubien brand. So the Beaubien brand has been officially retired after 10 years. And we're transitioning everything to my new brand. It's Aunt Katrina's Preserves, Chutneys, and Condiments, because I have the mustards and the my roasted tomato sauce. So for those that, there's been a lot of great press about it. It was in the Detroit News, and it's on my website. No one is going to go hungry in the transition. And we might even make some more products June 1st, but we had enough supply to get us through June. So we're available. That's available in the Eastern Market in Shed 2 on Saturdays, and then through all of our stores. So we're at about 300 stores in Michigan, the Beaubien brand, and then my roasted tomato sauce, the ketchup. So that's still available in all of your local retail stores.
How has the supply been throughout the pandemic for you?
We started with supply chain issues in October. I think, I had ordered more jars in, June. I mean, it was kind of a struggle, but I had a couple pallets of jars coming in to get us through to the holidays. And then they were supposed to arrive in August, and it'll be a bit, we ran out in October, like October 1st, out of jars. And I didn't get more in until Christmas Eve.
Wow.
It was a really fun holiday for Aunt Katrina. I didn't even host Christmas. It was like, I made jam Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve. I was making jam. And my production manager, Sharina Ronce, she was off for the holidays. So it was just me and my little, just stirring my pots.
You have to do what you have to do when you're a small business owner.
You do.
Katrina Ayat with us here on the Megacast. She's the owner and founder for Aunt Katrina's brand. And with that too, I think what's so great is you also have a foundation. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I'm really excited because I'm known as a philanthropist more in Toledo than in Detroit, but I am on the board of the Eastern Market, and I love our mission, a happier, healthier, wealthier Detroit. That's what it's all about, is teaching people how they can get access to great food, great nutritious food. But my mission is really to teach them how they can grow their own food and preserve their own food. That's, I've been training my whole life for this. That's what we did. I always say I was born with a lot of blessings, but, money was not one of them. We weren't really given anything. And we didn't realize, I don't think growing up that we realized we were poor. We just were so blessed. We grew everything and canned and jarred everything together. I have some fun stories on my blog. I do a silly little blog on my website that I talk about things. And, but I think it's important that everybody gets to do that where your food comes from. So started a foundation. So I'm giving away, and this is probably the best place to announce it. I have about 60,000 heirloom tomato plants that I sell them on Saturdays in the market. You're welcome to come and make a donation, or, to my actual, company, or any of the workers that are there. You can get them for $3. They're USDA certified organic, but I have about 60,000 additional that I'm going to be donating to the community this year. I'll have them available this Saturday and Tuesday, so that all the community gardeners can take things and plant the tomatoes and share them with them, their family, their friends. One tomato plant can feed a lot of people. If you've ever had a neighbor that had tomatoes in August or September, they're fine in August making their own caprese salad, they're making sauce, and then all of a sudden you get bushels dumped on your front porch.
That is true. We have someone in our neighborhood that he gets so many that then the bags start coming on your front porch with that.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. But I mean, isn't that a great way to feed Detroit? I mean, what do you think?
So
I mean, it's worth a shot.
It really is. And Katrina, I have to ask, you know, there has been an explosion and a lot of attention over, I'd say, the past 5 years on Detroit and the urban farming that's going on. But then we also hit the pandemic, where at the beginning we had a food supply chain issues. So do you think it's really helped bolster your mission as well, for people to understand they can grow their own food?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And as a part of the Eastern Market partnership, you know, I don't believe that the supply chain issue wasn't there. I mean, we made sure that the market was open every Saturday. We never closed. The Eastern Market was there. We started a food box program immediately. We had vendors like, you know, LaGrasso Brothers and Delbane and everyone donating pallets and pallets of tomatoes or of produce, excuse me, tomatoes on the brain, but that people could come and pick up for free. We're doing all kinds of pay it forward programs. So the Eastern Market partnership that I'm a big part of, like I say, I've made my living there. And we are doing everything we can to make sure that Detroiters have access to the food. It's just, I think that the issue, Ronnie, is more getting the word out to the public, because, you know, Detroiters, the ones that need the help most, don't have computers. You know, they don't have, you know, I heard somebody the other day say that they can't find any help. And I said, well, where are you looking? Why did you put a help wanted sign out? And he said, oh no, I advertised in the paper. I said, well, do you subscribe to the paper anymore? I mean, it's all online. You know, so let's say that you don't have a phone. You know, I mean, maybe you should put it on the side of the buses where everybody is getting the buses. You know, that's the biggest thing. We need our community to rally together. And that's what Aunt Katrina's Foundation is about, is getting the word out about where you can get access to services, you know, what is available to you, you know, where you can get food, mental health care, you know, the wellness centers on Russell and over on, like, you know, Mount Elliott and Mac. We've got a wellness center right in the middle of one of the worst, you know, drug areas that you can see. And so my idea is, hey, let's start dumping tomato plants and great produce there. And, you know, when you push more good in, it'll sort of push out the bad, right?
We hope so.
It's worth a shot. It's worth a shot.
And you know, you have to try and start somewhere. Katrina Ayat with us here. She's the owner and founder for Aunt Katrina's. And I will say, fresh food is so vital in the city of Detroit, because we know that, yes, they have a Whole Foods now downtown, but it's a very small store. It's not accessible by those in the neighborhoods. Fresh food is one of the hardest things for so many Detroiters to have access to.
And that's the thing. It's a mystery to me. I can't tell you. We get, you know, thousands of people that come to our market, but they'll say, oh, I didn't know you were open. We thought you were closed during the pandemic. No, there is nothing but fresh fruit, produce, vegetables, all of the produce for the state of Michigan comes into the produce terminal on 4th Street. It all comes through Detroit. It's all downtown. And then you have all of these companies coming and picking it up fresh that day. You know, when I was on the wholesale market in the Eastern Market, I would, you know, do that at night in Shed 2. And we would bring semi-loads of tomatoes. We still do. But, you know, every one of your produce stores out in, you know, let's use, you know, Joe's in Livonia or Vincent Joe's, you know, they're picking up right at the market, and then they're bringing that local produce back to you. But in the heart of the city, that's where, you know, all of these urban gardens, I mean, it's amazing. Keep Growing Detroit is right there in the market. If you haven't been to the Eastern Market lately, you need to come. You need to come and see how the entire district is rallied around just providing Detroiters the best food, healthy food, so that they can think. You know, when you're hungry, you can't think straight. You just can't. Children can't learn when they're not hungry. That's why we do, you know, Gleaners, and through the Feeding America Food Network, we do backpack programs. And that was one of the problems during the pandemic, was saying, if they're not in school, what's happening? Where are they getting their healthy food? And we had to go to a full-on, you know, getting backpacks, getting food into the homes. But we need to be spreading the word about where to come, and just coming to the market, either the Oakland Farmers Market or the Detroit Market. And I just shout out to Dan Prelip Farms. That's where my My USDA certified organic greenhouse is inside of Dan Prelip's farm. And he goes to the Oakland market on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday with all of his beautiful flowers and plants, and then all of his fresh produce starting in July, August.
So with that, Katrina, I'm sorry we need to let you go because we want to join the governor. But again, Katrina Ayat, she's with Aunt Katrina's branded businesses. You can find her at Eastern Market. We would love to have you on again, maybe a little bit later in the summer.
Sure, sounds good.
It's been great talking to you, and I'll look for you at the market.
Shed 2. See you then.
So with that, Tyler, is the governor taking the podium yet? She is typically right on time.
The governor is not taking the podium yet. They are still, it looks like they're still doing some bit of setup and preparation work out there in Midland. She's on a baseball field out there where the press conference will take place today, but she has not taken the podium just yet. So we do have time for a break if we would like, or discussion.
Okay. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll see if the governor is ready by then.
All right, that's what we will do. We are going to take a quick break. We'll come right back after this on the Oakland County Megacast. Greater West Bloomfield's news magazine show The Splash is back on 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. Join WWJ's Brooke Allen and the team as they cover the most interesting people, events, and projects in West Bloomfield, Keagle Harbor, Orchard Lake, and Sylvan Lake. The Splash returns at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, May 25th on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful. Because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Finally, I just got my COVID-19 vaccine.
I registered with my local health department and they called me.
I got mine at the pharmacy and my neighbor got hers from the hospital.
I'm not a techie person, so I called the COVID hotline and they helped me schedule an appointment.
Get vaccinated with the first vaccine you can. Protect us all.
Learn more at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
We want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios. Mr. Tyler Keith holding things down for us back there in West Bloomfield. As a reminder, you can always catch us Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, Channel 15 on Comcast, 99 on AT&T. We are waiting for Governor Gretchen Whitmer. She is expected to be holding a press conference here in just a minute or so. She is walking to the podium at a baseball field in Midland. It is expected that the governor is going to announce an easement of some of the restrictions. Let's go to the governor's press conference now.
Pardon? Oh, start in a minute 30. All right. There's a lot of mics up here. Here. Can I give this to you real quick? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they don't exactly give you any room, do they?
The podium's a nice spot, but
All right, hello everyone. Welcome. It is May 20th, Thursday, and I am joined today by Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist, Midland Mayor Maureen Donker, Jim Federling, the Dow Chairman and CEO, Matt Fallon, the President of Great Lakes Bay Regional Alliance, and Chris Mudhank, the General Manager for the Dow Diamond. We are so happy to be here today. And before I jump in, I just want to thank Dow for the incredible help that they've given the state of Michigan as we have navigated everything from historic flooding to the need to get PPE and develop PPE here in Michigan, to their participation with the Michigan Economic Recovery Council, and for loaning us a lot of their math geniuses to help us with our modeling. And I'm just so grateful that they've been such an incredible partner. So, good afternoon. Today I am going to provide an update on masks, and then we will walk through some of the changes to the Back to Normal plan about building back our economy. To date, Michigan has administered almost 7.9 million doses of the safe, effective COVID-19 vaccines to more than 4.6 million Michiganders ages 16 and up, with 57% of our eligible population receiving at least one dose. Cases and test positivity have declined for 5 straight weeks. Hospitalizations have declined for 3 weeks in a row, and our COVID metrics are trending downward in Michigan and, of course, across the country. This is great news. Over 60% of American adults have gotten their first shots, and almost half are fully vaccinated nationwide. So life is getting back to normal. Last Thursday, the CDC released new guidance on masks based on the strength of vaccines in preventing infection and spread among vaccinated people. Now, the guidance stated that vaccinated people no longer need to wear masks or socially distance outdoors or indoors, other than in certain medical spaces. We have adjusted our mask policy to match the CDC recommendation. So now, in Michigan, fully vaccinated people no longer need to wear a mask, outdoors or indoors, unless required by their work or business. And our recovery continues to pick up steam. Michigan's unemployment rate is now 4.9%. That's over a full point below the national average. In the past year, unemployment in Michigan has fallen by nearly 80%, and we have added 968,000 jobs over the last year. But we still have work to do. We are still short of where we were before the pandemic, and our economic recovery is going well, but we need to do and continue to do a lot more to invest in our families, small businesses, and communities to help them succeed. So, as with every decision that we've made throughout the pandemic, we are leading with science and data to keep you and your family safe. But the way to put this pandemic behind us is for everyone to get their shot. The vaccine is the best way to keep you and your family and the most vulnerable among us safe from COVID-19. Recently, the Pfizer vaccine, manufactured right here in Michigan, was authorized for children ages 12 to 16. Tens of thousands of kids have already gotten their shot to protect themselves from COVID and its variants. And I encourage all parents with kids in that age range to speak to your doctors about this vaccine. While millions of Michiganders have already gotten vaccinated, I know that many people still have questions, or some just want to wait it out. I want to speak to those people and answer some of their questions. First, these vaccines are safe. Over 160 million Americans have taken it. It's been rigorously tested and is trusted by doctors. Like other vaccines before it, for polio and smallpox, the vaccine represents hope and healing. And even if you've had COVID, you should still get vaccinated to protect yourself from variants and repeat infection. If you received a monoclonal antibody treatment, you should still get your shot, but you need to wait 90 days after the treatment. And if you want to know more, I encourage you to speak with your family doctor and learn how vaccines can save your life and the lives of the people you love. Now, let's talk about some changes to the Back to Normal plan. As you can probably imagine, when the CDC came out last week with new mask guidance, we had to go back to the drawing board. Come on, that's kind of funny if you're not paying attention. All right, we went back to the drawing board. Originally, our plan had 4 steps, each of which was tied to a percentage of Michiganders receiving their first shot plus 2 weeks. So the first step started at 55%, and we hit that number pretty quickly. That means that we take the step on next Monday of getting people back in workplaces. The following steps would have happened every 5% as our vaccinations grew. On May 10th, when we surpassed that 55%, we now will see MIOSHA take action to allow offices across Michigan to allow in-person work in workplaces. Next Monday, we'll have a lot more detail to share on the MIOSHA rules for COVID-19 workplace safety. Now, based on the new mask guidance, we have 2 steps to get back to normal. On June 1st, June 1st, all outdoor capacity limits will be lifted, including here at the Dow Diamond, so you can come and cheer on the Loons. We will maintain, the Dow Diamond folks are really excited, and I am too. We will maintain our mask rule as already announced, but otherwise lift all mitigation measures on outdoor gatherings and only retain a 50% capacity limit on indoor establishments. That means that an indoor social gathering like a wedding or a funeral or a conference or a graduation party will be allowed to resume at 50% capacity through the month of June. In June, people who are not yet fully vaccinated are required to continue to mask up when they are indoors. MDHHS will officially release the updated order on Monday, so you can check it out then. On July 1, that is when we will take our final step. We will lift the broad mask and gatherings order and will no longer impose broad mitigation measures during the pandemic, unless, of course, unanticipated circumstances arise. We do not expect that to happen. We look at this as the last moment of these types of orders. We will be able to sing at church, dance at weddings, cheer at games, hug each other, and laugh together. I know that is welcome news to so many. We may have one or more targeted orders in place to protect vulnerable populations, but for the most part, life will be back to normal, and we can have the kind of Independence Day we're all looking forward to. After a year of living with COVID and with masks and distancing and hand washing, I know how jarring any change to our daily lives feels. In this time of transition, I'm asking that people extend one another a little bit of grace. As we return to normal, we should remember that tough times don't last, but tough people do. We've gotten through this pandemic because of each other, because of our fellow Michiganders. As daily routines start to look more normal, we should recognize that everyone processes change at different speeds and in different ways. And so for the next few weeks and possibly months, some Michiganders will feel safer with a mask, even if they've been vaccinated, and that's okay. Other Michiganders who may have been vaccinated are ready to go mask-free, and that's okay too. Either way, there should be no shaming or guilt tripping. Instead, I encourage people to have a conversation with their family doctor about the safe, effective vaccines. Ask your questions and learn more about how incredible they are and how they can help us get back to normal. So personally, since I am 2 weeks past my second dose, I'm going mask-free because I know it's safe for my family and for me and those around me. We should trust one another to make choices that are best for us. On July 1st, the broad mask rule will be lifted. But I want to be clear about the fact that businesses and workplaces are well within their rights to require masks as patrons go in. So let's give them our support as they navigate what's best for them and their workforce and their patrons. There will ultimately come a day when masks will be distant memories, maybe in boxes in our basements. But until then, we've got to transition back to normalcy together and give each other some grace. Now, as our economic recovery continues, our task is clear: build back better. Right now, we have an opportunity to make transformative investments in Michigan's fundamentals, in our schools, our small businesses, and our communities. We have over $1 billion in federal COVID relief funds sent to us by the Trump administration. You heard that right. Last year, they sent it to us, and they're still awaiting action in the legislature. I want to thank Midland Senator Stamas and our approach chair for helping get dollars out the door for Michiganders, and I look forward to continuing our partnership to do just that. We also have billions headed our way under President Biden's American Rescue Plan, which includes $5.7 billion to the state of Michigan, $4.4 billion to local governments, and $3.9 billion to Michigan schools. We need to think big right now. Think outside the box. If we use these resources effectively, we can create thousands of good-paying jobs for Michiganders and put us on a path to prosperity that far outlasts our recovery from COVID. In addition to these federal funds, we also have the state budget, and I laid out my budget priorities back in February. My budget proposal focuses on people, projects, and potential. Largest investment in K-12 education in our history without raising taxes. Invest $370 million to lower child care costs, in some cases down to zero for 150,000 Michigan families. Beefs up the Michigan Reconnect and Futures for Frontliners. Puts $300 million toward fixing bridges. $290 million in the My Clean Water Plan to build up water infrastructure and create thousands of good-paying jobs. So to meet this moment, we have to work together in a civil, bipartisan way. We got to get these billions in aid out the door for Michiganders now. Our jobs numbers are heading in the right direction, and we still have work to do to get back to our pre-pandemic levels of employment and beyond. I look forward to getting these budgets done and spending these federal dollars in the smartest way to benefit all Michiganders. In the weeks and months ahead, as we emerge from this pandemic, my administration will double down on the kitchen table issues that have guided our agenda from day one. A great education for every Michigan child, better paying jobs and path to education and skills, clean air and water, reliable roads and bridges, and much more. I am excited about the opportunity in front of us, and I'll continue to work to make sure we realize our potential. So with that, thank you. I'm going to hand it over to the Lieutenant Governor, and then we'll go from there. Thanks.
Thank you, Governor, and good afternoon, everyone. I always want to acknowledge and thank Governor Whitmer for her leadership. Also want to acknowledge Jim Fitterling of Dow, the mayor, others who've joined us here today for this important announcement about how we're going to move forward together, the pathway to the back end of this pandemic. I'm really thrilled to be here in Midland, here at the Dow Diamond. You know, when we marked the one-year anniversary, of our first COVID cases, we stood in stadiums like this that were empty, addressing the hardships that we have been through as a state. But all of us, even at that moment when we were low, we had hope. Hope that we'd be able to fill stadiums like this one, stadiums like the Breslin Center, stadiums like the Big House, to enjoy a musical or a play at the thousands of theater venues across the state of Michigan, or like the Fox Theater in my hometown of Detroit. And of course, enjoy the sports that we love and that connect us across any divides. With every passing day, we move closer to reaching and reclaiming that sense of normalcy that we have all been craving. We must continue to encourage every person in Michigan who's eligible to make the choice to get vaccinated. This is the safest, this is the pathway for us to make sure that we can protect one another in addition to protecting ourselves, and that we can enable the opportunity that we know lies before us. In this particular area, I know that we're no stranger to coming together because we face unimaginable circumstances here in mid-Michigan. You know, shortly after the flooding that happened in this area, I was able to come out and personally tour where the dams failed. I was inspired to see how quickly the people of Midland and Sanford came together to support one another. I was actually equally inspired by the way that people from every corner of the state of Michigan really stepped up to stand tall for their Michigan neighbors and friends and family and, yes, strangers, because they knew that that helping hand was necessary. I've also visited Sanford Park for a cleanup project and toured the M30 bridge that was rebuilt in partnership with community and with the Michigan Department of Transportation. I'm thankful for those employees and team members who worked tirelessly to repair that bridge and do so quickly, recognizing how critical that infrastructure is to this community. So many people have opened their doors to friends and family in need of shelter, in need of support. It took everyone coming together after this historic flooding event to start the next chapter. And the people of mid-Michigan have stepped up and begun writing. And that's why 1 year later, Governor Whitmer and I are here to show not only that we continue to maintain support, but that support is not going anywhere. Now, since the start of the pandemic, the governor and I have been focused on trying to do the right things, on acting quickly, on following the science, on listening to experts. And because of not only governor's leadership, but because people across the state, elected appointed leaders, community leaders, individuals have stepped up, Michigan is on our way to getting back to normal and rebuilding and reimagining our economy. We have so many resources that the state has contributed and committed to supporting not only the survival, but supporting those who are going to be coming out bigger and better after this pandemic is over. Whether it's programs like our Small Business Resource Grants, Restart Grants, programs to support restaurant owners and workers, programs to support the first responders and the people who've been working all year during this pandemic to make sure that we could continue life and sustain it. We are looking forward to continuing those investments and leveraging every resource so that we can emerge from this pandemic stronger and better connected than ever. We'll leverage all of the resources of state government to rebuild this economy back better, harnessing every economic tool at our disposal and working with leaders in government, leaders in the private sector and beyond to create an environment where entrepreneurs, where people with ideas, no matter where they live in Michigan, can bring those ideas forward into reality to create good paying jobs and opportunities for all Michiganders. Just yesterday, we saw how Michigan's economy is moving forward as our unemployment rate is lower than the national average. We've added jobs for 3 consecutive months. 968,000 jobs have been added over the past year. That is real progress. Progress toward getting Michiganders and our economy back to normal. The governor and I will remain focused on economic recovery, resilience, and most of all, opportunity for all. But one of the most important steps, which we cannot reiterate enough, is making the choice to get vaccinated. Since I last spoke with the press corps, I've had a chance to receive my second dose in Flint, Michigan. Proud now to be counted amongst the people who have gotten both shots. This is our best shot to be free from this pandemic and the quickest way to getting our country and our communities back to where we want them to be, where we can hug one another, we can get back to work, we can go to restaurants, we can send our kids to school, to play sports without the thought and the fears that we've all had to live with. But even now, there are still conversations to be had with people who have questions. Those questions are okay, and those questions have answers. It's important to recognize that we all have the power to encourage someone to make that choice, and that every person in Michigan who has not yet chosen to get vaccinated is just one conversation away. That's why we formed the Protect Michigan Commission, to connect people with the information and resources from credible sources that they could trust, from community resources that people have relationships with and have had so for generations, to use that credibility to demonstrate the credibility of the vaccine. And this effort has required the biggest, broadest coalition of leaders for anything we faced in Michigan. It's the largest and most diverse commission that we've appointed, and it's working as people are choosing to get vaccinated every single day. So I want to challenge Michiganders, especially those who have already gotten at least one vaccine dose, to talk about your experience, to let people know whether you had questions, whether it took a little convincing to get you to that decision point. At the vaccine sites that I've toured, speaking with nurses who come out of retirement to help this effort, they talk about calming and comforting people as they sit down to get their vaccine dose. Those nurses are public servants. They are heroes and miracle workers because they are helping people get back to normal. So I want you to make sure that you're using every resource you have, that you send a text message to someone today, that you send a Facebook message to someone today, that you have a conversation on the phone or in person with someone today, because we all know people who may not have yet made that choice. But if we make every effort, we can get to and beyond having 70% of people in Michigan vaccinated. We can see the finish line coming into focus, and now we got to give it everything we have. This is essential, and it's the most important choice that people in Michigan can make right now. Along with our partners in the federal government, Governor Whitmer and I have committed to making sure that we can grow our economy back stronger and better. We're going to use everything at our disposal to make that happen. This has shown us in this pandemic that Michiganders really can do anything. We are capable of any and everything when we come together and work together to do extraordinary things. We've seen that spirit here in Midland. In a matter of hours, this community came together to start recovering from a once in 500-year flood, to mobilize and evacuate to safety tens of thousands of people with not a single casualty. That is the embodiment of hope, determination, and grit. That is in the DNA of every person who calls Michigan home. So I hope that every person who's watching from around the state can channel that energy that is so present and is represented by these people and these leaders in this part of our state today. So thank you all for having me today. Thank you all for really, truly standing tall for one another and standing tall for the state of Michigan. And let's remember to reach out to one another, to take care of one another, to be there for one another. Let's make sure every Michigander knows that every other Michigander has their back. And now it's my honor to turn the podium here over to the mayor of this great city.
Hello. I think our Lieutenant Governor just did a wonderful job telling our story. And I wanted to take this opportunity, though, to thank our governor and her team for coming here today to check on us. A year after we went into this catastrophic disaster. And I also want to say thank you for being there for us a year ago as we were trying to figure out how we were going to respond to this. I think what you see is a wonderful example of the grit that we have as a community. We have come a long way in that last year. This is a wonderful example of neighbor helping neighbor, of family, friends, and yes, as the Lieutenant Governor said, even strangers coming from across the state in our country to help us. For us, you know,
it is just shy of 12 noon. We'll say goodbye on WBFH in Bloomfield Hills, and we'll return tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. with them. We'll stick right here to the press conference on the rest of our outlets.
From our state and country, it was really very humbling for us to see how we help one another as a state and as a country. We've come a long way in this year, and we have a long way yet to go. But hearing that we're going to be opening up even more is so important to us as we go through this recovery. We are looking forward to moving forward, but it's going to take us some time. But I know that we can do it. And seeing I have this opportunity, I just need to say to my fellow citizens of Midland County how proud I am of all of you, and I hope that you are proud also of what you have accomplished in this past year. My thanks to all of you, and it is incredibly humbling to serve you as your mayor. So now it is my opportunity to introduce to you Jim Fitterling, our wonderful president and CEO of Dow, and one of the organizations that was incredibly important in this recovery effort. Jim?
Good day, everyone. Governor Whitmer, Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist, thank you again for coming to Midland today, and I should say many times over this past year. And thanks for participating in the Pulling Our Weight cleanup event in Sanford this morning. I think it was a great way for you to connect with the community. This community has endured a lot, and it has come a long way, but as you saw, we still have a lot of work to do. 1 year ago, you and I were in Lansing, and Dow introduced a return to the workplace playbook to allow employers to be able to go to work safely. And here we are a year later, and we're getting ready to open wide up in the state of Michigan. That night when I drove back, it was a heavy rainstorm, and the dams breached the next day. We would see each other again at the end of the week when you came up. And I remember in your press briefing then, you struck a very optimistic tone that this is a strong community and we get through it together. In times of crisis, the spirit of community comes through, and it did across all 5 of these counties that were impacted. And as you saw while touring Sanford this morning, that's exactly what is happening. A special thanks to the thousands of volunteers all over these 5 counties, to all the Dow employees and retirees who were part of that effort, who continue to give selflessly to help the communities and families affected by the floods, to all the foundations, to all the civic organizations, and to people, volunteers from all over the state of Michigan that came up here to help people in need clean out their basements, get wet furniture out, and get things ready to be cleaned up and start their lives again. Your announcement today about opening up the state is a big step toward reclaiming part of our lives that many of us took for granted prior to the pandemic. And it's time. It's time for us to get on with life. Here in the Great Lakes Bay region, we're excited to have the Great Lakes Loons back in action at Dow Diamond this summer, something that didn't happen last year. And we're looking forward to welcoming fans back in July for the Dow Great Lakes Bay Invitational. And I want to thank your team for working with us and all of the other LPGA and PGA sponsors across the state to help us come up with a way to bring fans back to those events. This is also welcome news for many of the businesses that have struggled over the past year with restricted hours or closures. They've been on the front lines battling COVID, and they've made sacrifices for the community that should not be overlooked or forgotten. We are all optimistic about a world with fewer COVID restrictions, but we all need to do our part. And as Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist so eloquently said, we are blessed to have access to life-saving vaccines in this country, and the United States is leading the way in vaccination. You can be vaccinated today across the state of Michigan because these vaccines are available now, and they are safe and they are effective. I would encourage you to get the vaccine like I did. It'll be the best thing you can do for yourself, your friends, your family, and the state of Michigan. A team of Dow supply chain experts has worked with the state for the past several months to make sure that they could help get the data and the modeling they need to make critical decisions to do things like get those vaccines distributed all over this great state. We're very fortunate to have a strong community here and have community leaders with us who have led every step of the way so that we can get to this point. We're all committed to working with the governor, our policymakers, and our local businesses to come out of this stronger, and we have a path forward to build back these dams and get back to everything being normal in this region again. So Governor, Lieutenant Governor, thank you again for being in the Great Lakes Bay region. Thank you for being in Midland. You're welcome here anytime. And I'd like to bring Matt Fallon, the President and CEO of the Great Lakes Bay Regional Alliance. Matt.
Good afternoon, everyone. Great for you to be out here today. I, too, would like to recognize the Governor and Lieutenant Governor who have been frequent visitors here to the Great Lakes Bay region, and specifically to Midland and Sanford, following what has been an epically difficult year. Today, I just wanted to recognize people across the Great Lakes Bay region who have heeded the guidance and advice of the Whitmer administration to get vaccinated. When I was driving over here, I wanted to get the latest numbers to really get a good idea of what our region is doing. And as of this morning, 59% of adults in Midland County have received their first vaccine, 56% of adults in Bay County, 51% of adults in Saginaw County, and 48% of adults in Isabella County. This is about the people in the Great Lakes Bay region and across the state of Michigan taking matters into their own hand. I would really like to thank our citizens across this region who've said we want to defeat COVID and get a return to normalcy. It's through their willingness and their desire to put this behind us that they've gotten this vaccine and put us in a wonderful position to have a full ballpark again on June 1st. I share the message of the fellow leaders today and that we still have more work to do. What's great is these numbers are only going to continue to rise over the course of the next several months. I'll be honest, it's a surreal feeling to be up here maskless, to hear that in just a few weeks this stadium will be packed, and to understand that by July 1st, we can all return to the normalcy that we once had. I'll say the other part about people across this region is that they are ready to return to their normal lives. There's so many things that they want to do, and number one is get back to work, get back to their offices, get back to producing. We as a region and a state have a tremendous opportunity to grow our economy, but it only happens if we go back to work. And I have the pleasure of wearing multiple hats, and one of those hats is a school board member. And I can tell you it's been an extraordinarily challenging past year for students across the Great Lakes Bay region and the state. They are eager to learn. They are eager to get back to normal. And hopefully through the work that we all do in increasing vaccinations through the course of the next several months, we're going to go into a school year where our kids can get the type of education that they so badly deserve and need. So again, I want to thank the governor and lieutenant governor for being here today, for their leadership on this issue, and for putting us really in the right direction as we head into the summer months. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the guy's home that we're in, the new president and general manager of the Great Lakes Loons, Chris Munhank.
Thank you, Matt. On behalf of the entire Loons organization, the Los Angeles Dodgers, Major League and Minor League Baseball, welcome to beautiful Dow Diamond. We're thrilled to share this extraordinary day with you all, and a day that's not just extraordinary for the Loons and our incredible fans, but every outdoor entertainment venue in the great state of Michigan. 429 days ago, on March 16th, 2020, our community stepped into the batter's box and encountered an opponent we had never seen before, and one that we thought could only exist in textbooks. The COVID pandemic forced us to make tough decisions and put our lives on hold so we could keep our friends, our families, our colleagues, and even strangers safe from an opponent that we could not see. We traded bleachers for couches, catcher's masks for face masks, and live sports and entertainment for binge-watching TV. From Sherman Field in Houghton to Comerica Park in Detroit, from LMCU Ballpark in Grand Rapids to Dow Diamond here in Midland. Sports fans from all across our state put their fandom and rivalries aside and came together as one team, Team Michigan. And today, we have won the game. The list of people to thank for getting us to this moment is long, but every single one of you deserves our sincerest thanks and gratitude for your leadership, dedication, and perseverance over the past 14 months. To Governor Whitmer and her team, thank you for your leadership, poise, and professionalism through every tough decision made to keep Michiganders safe. To sports fans all across the state, Thank you for supporting your hometown teams, even when you could not attend a game. Your unwavering support during this challenging time has helped ensure the field lights stay on and your teams remain a pillar in your community. Our sports teams are so excited to be welcoming back full crowds to our facilities once again. For our players to once again hear the roar of the crowd, and for our staffs to rekindle valued friendships with our fans. To my fellow Michiganders, thank you for doing your part to keep each other safe. When asked, you stayed at home, you masked up, you got vaccinated. And now we can come together once again. Lastly, the greatest thanks to our frontline and service essential workers, to the healthcare workers in our hospitals, the grocery store workers that kept our shelves stocked around the clock, the teachers who never gave up on educating our children, and everyone in between. We will forever be indebted to you. Your bravery and sacrifices are the reason we are all here today. I could not be prouder to call the great state of Michigan home. We are Michiganders. We are resilient. We are back. And together, we are going to be better than ever. Thank you. And at this time, in honor of this moment, an important moment for us as well as all the other sports teams throughout the state, we'd like to offer our gratitude and sincere thanks to our governor and lieutenant governor and present each of you with Aleen's jersey.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you. I am so grateful for all of the participants today and the incredible work that is happening in Sanford to go and help a little bit of the cleanup and to take a tour with Dolores in Sanford and walk through the town. And with Jim, I mean, it's just really heartwarming to see how a community can come together after all these crises that converge. So it's always inspirational to come to this part of the state. So let's jump in. Eric, I'm going to call on you first because you laughed at my joke earlier. Well, I'm hopeful that we get to 70%. You know, the more people that get vaccinated, the better for all of our sake. And here's why. When this virus continues to spread, it can mutate. And at some point, maybe there will be a mutation that our vaccines aren't as good against. And that's why getting more people vaccinated is good for everyone. So our efforts to do that are not stopping. In fact, we are doing more mobile units than ever, getting to people where they are. But we also know that the brilliant Dow modelers told us that about this time we would see supply eclipse demand and it would slow down. And in fact, that's exactly what we're seeing. And that's why getting people's questions answered, meeting people where they are. These are critical components to us increasing the number of people that get vaccinated. I also want to encourage people who are not vaccinated. I mean, the rule is if you're indoors, you need to wear your mask. That falls away July 1st. It is still going to be the smartest policy to stay safe if you are someone who is not vaccinated to mask up when you're indoors, especially with people from outside your household. We're hoping that we will get to 70%. We've got a lot of partners, whether it's health systems or employers who are working with us to do just that. But at this point, we know the CDC kind of changed the landscape. It was a little bit of a surprise. Good news, to be sure, but we had to recalibrate our plan, and that's what I think you see. Now, I've gotten a lot of calls from people who say, can we have $1 million raffle like they're doing in Ohio? Trust me, I've heard a lot of people are interested in that. Michigan law precludes us from doing that, but we are investigating if there are additional ways that we can encourage people to get vaccinated. But the most powerful reason is because it'll keep you safe, it'll keep your loved ones safe, and it'll help us all have confidence as we're out in the public. Yes? So the curfews are dropped as well. What we know is that when the CDC came out with this new rule, they have confidence that the science bears out that if you are vaccinated, you are safe to go without a mask in all places. That is great news. It also was confusing to a lot of people, and that's why we wanted to make sure that our policies mirrored the CDC's recommendations and that we gave people clarity. So June 1 and then July 1, those are the two steps. We've collapsed the VAC to normal because it just became very clear that it was important for us to give people sure dates and confidence that we can be safe doing this. And so that's why we've reconfigured the plan. Yes? Yes and yes. All right. Yes.
My question is, so looking at the idea that you can, no one has to wear a mask on July 1st, kind of gives the impression that we're all pretty safe on that time. As you say, everyone knows that you can wear a mask. But what does it say to businesses, especially that want to check vaccine cards, and people that, I mean, do you have any comments on that? Businesses that might want to check the vaccine?
So first, I think it's important to acknowledge the safest thing you can do is get vaccinated. And then you can enjoy all of these things that we've all been just so eager to re-engage. Second, if you are unvaccinated, you choose not to get vaccinated, or you're unable to get vaccinated for some medical reason, we're going to strongly encourage people to continue to mask up, especially when they are indoors with people outside their household. But that's going to be encouragement. That will not be through some sort of an order that comes from the state. Remind me the second part of your question.
Any comment on businesses who decide
Oh, yes. Well, we want to make sure, part of our call is to extend some grace to one another and to respect businesses who decide that they want to continue to have some form of mask requirement. Some businesses may have an employee who's going through chemotherapy and is immune compromised, and they want their customers to make sure that they're masked up so that that employee is safe. We need to extend the grace and show some respect to these businesses and ask that everyone do exactly that and follow the needs and the lead of individual business rules. They still are within their right to do exactly that. Yeah, Rick. Oh, sorry. I'm on a roll. Rick, go ahead. I mean, the CDC change was based on their most recent understanding of the science. And so when they promulgated that, it wasn't just confusing for Michiganders. I've talked to enough of my colleagues across the country on both sides of the aisle, and everyone had to move quickly to give some clarity and to make the state rules sing on the same page with the CDC guidelines. That's precisely what we're doing. Now, the CDC has driven a lot of our policies over the course of the last year and a half. They are the ones who are conversant in all of the studies. Certainly, Dr. Caldoun and our incredible experts here in Michigan have been a part of that conversation as well, but we've been following the CDC in large part. When they came up with this new policy recommendation, we wanted to make sure that the people of Michigan had clarity, but to be certain, the best way to stay safe is to be vaccinated, and that it continues to be the case. All right, I'm going to do one more. I know you're trying to cut me off. Yes?
There's a legislative proposal to require the governor to alert the legislature if they travel outside of the state. What are your thoughts?
I think that that's gamesmanship. It's not productive, and it is probably not constitutional as well. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer live from Midland today during a press conference. You're listening to 89.3 Lakes FM, Civic Center and Civic Center TV. Our other outlets have exited for the day, and that will do it for today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast. Of course, big news coming from the governor. A lot of these restrictions related to COVID-19, particularly the mask order and capacity limit orders, will be reduced or expiring beginning June 1st. Outdoor capacity limits will be lifted. However, masks will continue to be required outside beginning on June 1st. And then indoor capacity limits will then be limited to 50% as of June 1st as well. Thank you for tuning in. For Ronnie Dahl, Larry Nyland, Jake Kustash, and our entire team here at Civic Center TV, I'm Tyler Keefe. Thanking you for tuning in to the Megacast. We will return tomorrow bright and early, 10 a.m. here on our family of TV, radio, and other media outlets. Stand by. We'll return to our regular programming and join Lunch with Larry in just a moment on 89.3 Lakes FM.